I returned home unexpectedly early one day and inadvertently overheard my girlfriend boasting about her infidelity. Overcome with emotion, I chose to leave our home without uttering a single word. Now, she's frantically searching for me, but I've taken the step to block her on all platforms. At 38 years old, I recently discovered that my 36-year-old girlfriend of 5 years betrayed me, and the manner in which I found out was nothing short of devastating. To provide some context about myself, I have never been married, nor do I have any children. It's not that I lack the desire for either. Rather, life simply hasn't presented those opportunities to me yet. But enough about that, let me delve into the story. Last Friday, after a long day at work, I decided to embark on a weekend getaway with my friends to one of my buddies' cabins situated by the serene lake. It was a typical trip: fishing, engaging in drinking games, and enjoying each other's company. These excursions are a regular occurrence for us, happening roughly every 3 months, providing a much-needed break and giving our significant others a respite from our constant presence. Typically, I stay for the entire weekend and depart on Sunday night to prepare for work on Monday morning. However, this particular weekend, I made the mistake of leaving my laptop behind in the office. In my rush, I forgot to retrieve it, so around 4 p.m., I began my journey back home. I estimated arriving by 6 p.m., thinking that my girlfriend, whom I'll call Rachel, wouldn't have had time to eat by then. To ensure she wouldn't go hungry, I placed an order at our favorite Italian restaurant, stopped to pick it up, and made my way to our house. Upon entering, everything appeared to be normal. I could hear Rachel laughing joyfully in the kitchen, so I thought to myself that I'd surprise her by walking in. As I approached closer, the conversation Rachel was having on the phone became audible, and in an instant, my world came crashing down. Initially, I presumed she was speaking to her sister or perhaps a close friend, but the content of the conversation was far more painful. "Last night was absolutely incredible. He was such a thoughtful and attentive lover. Pause. Honestly, I've never experienced anything like it before. Pause. We met on Tinder, and he took me out yesterday. By the time we reached the door, we could barely make it to the sofa. Pause. Oh my God, he's huge, like twice as big as I expected. Insert my name, pause. I'm definitely going to take him for another spin." Upon hearing her mention my name in this degrading context, I couldn't contain my emotions any longer and dropped the food right onto the floor. Rachel noticed the noise and turned around. By that moment, tears were already welling up in my eyes. She quickly ended the phone call and attempted to approach me, but overwhelmed with hurt, I pushed her away, retrieved my laptop from the office, and left the house without another word. Over the past 4 days, Rachel has been incessantly texting and calling me, but I haven't responded to any of her attempts to reach out. Currently, I'm staying at a motel a few towns away, believing that she won't be able to track me down. My friends and my mother have been contacted by Rachel as she desperately tries to locate me, but I've reassured everyone that I'm okay and that there's no cause for concern. This single phone call has left my life in ruins. I genuinely believe Rachel was the person I intended to spend the rest of my life with. As an only child, my mother constantly reminds me that she desires grandchildren. I had meticulously planned to propose to Rachel this year on the 4th of July, marking our 6-year anniversary. I already have the ring ready, and my friend and his wife are aware of the plan, as they were instrumental in setting us up and hosting our gatherings. I would greatly appreciate any advice you can offer. This is the first time I'm grappling with infidelity in a relationship, and I feel utterly broken. Should I reach out to Rachel? Should I give her a chance to explain? The mere thought of her makes me feel nauseous. Comments. Traditional Band 723. She was openly bragging about cheating on you. Such an experience will forever be etched in your memory. It's time to move forward. Boston Dana 2. She revealed her true character. Be grateful you discovered this now rather than after many years of marriage. Bushy Boy 1973. You've already heard everything you need from her. Focus on not looking back. Chuck 509. Yes, consider addressing this. Being a kind-hearted person, you might struggle to comprehend why she did this. You might want to make a public declaration to prevent any reconciliation. You've avoided a major heartbreak. Guskop. It's good that you remain faithful, and it's unfortunate that she was such a terrible person. She used her behavior as an excuse, thinking you might cheat on her during those trips. It's also concerning that she didn't disclose who she was speaking to, likely someone within your close circle, possibly one of your friends' wives. Make sure to warn your friends about these potential issues. Update. Hello everyone. First and foremost, I want to extend my gratitude for all your kind words. This past week has been incredibly stressful, and while I wasn't in the headspace to respond to anyone's messages, please know that I read every comment, and your support helped me get through it. This has been an overwhelming experience, and each of your comments and messages provided a small ray of hope during a dark time. Here's the latest update. Last Friday night, after my friends arrived at the hotel, I shared what I had overheard from Rachel's phone call. They were all shocked, to say the least. They inquired if I had noticed any signs of her infidelity, and honestly, I hadn't. I expressed my uncertainty about what to do next, and informed one of my friends that I was calling off the proposal. Given the situation, he completely understood. I also had my friends disable any tracking on their phones in case Rachel was trying to locate me through them. While Rachel is close with one of the wives, I didn't want to take any chances. That night, we spent time at the hotel bar, and I ended up drinking excessively, taking shot after shot, which was not a pleasant experience. My friends received calls all night from the social services department inquiring about our whereabouts, but they stood firm and assured the callers that we were safe. One of them tried to reach out to me, but I chose not to engage. The caller kept insisting that Rachel was worried and wanted me to return home. I told my friend to handle it, promising to update them later. I spent most of the evening flirting with the bartender, which I'm not proud of, and a few traveling women I met there. The next day, I thanked everyone for their company, and they returned to their homes. This week, I had one of my friends check the house we were renting, as it was on his route to work, which was after Rachel and I would typically leave for the day. Rachel had taken Monday and Tuesday off, but returned to work on Wednesday. Once my friend informed me, I immediately went to the house and began packing as many of my belongings as possible. The house was in disarray, dishes piled in the sink, clothes scattered everywhere, and trash overflowing with takeout and ordered food. It took me about 3.5 hours to gather all my things. Before departing, I cleaned up the house for Rachel as a final gesture that afternoon and evening. Rachel inundated me with calls and texts once she realized I had returned home to collect my belongings. Currently, I'm staying at my mother's house until I can secure my own place this fall. I spoke with the landlord, and without Rachel's signature, he won't remove me from the lease, meaning I'll have to cover my portion until October. Thankfully, my mother has offered me a place to stay until then, although it's humiliating to think that a 38-year-old man is moving back in with his mother. Such is the unpredictable nature of life. I finally reached out to Rachel on Thursday, proposing that we meet at a local bar in downtown Grill on Friday evening. I mentioned that one of my friends would accompany me to ensure everything remained respectful. She objected initially, expressing a desire for me to come home and discuss things to move past this incident. I insisted that if she wanted to see me, it would have to be under the terms I set. Eventually, she agreed. On Friday night, Rachel arrived after my friend and I had been at the bar for about an hour. I had already eaten and took a couple of shots of whiskey to steady my nerves. We sat down, and she attempted to engage in small talk, inquiring about my well-being and other trivial matters. I swiftly shut down that conversation, informing her that I had a list of questions I needed answers to. Her eyes immediately filled with tears. I asked her, "How long has this been going on?" She insisted that it was a one-time occurrence. I urged her to stop the deception. I made it clear that there was no possibility of us reconciling, and that I needed the truth for my own closure to move forward with my life. She remained steadfast for a few minutes, but eventually, as many of you predicted, she confessed. "Every time I went on those trips over the past 2 years, I thought you were going to cheat on me, so I sought out my own fun as well." This revelation infuriated me. I accused her of using my supposed infidelity as a pretext to justify her own indiscretions. I then inquired about the person she was speaking to on the phone, but she refused to disclose their identity. When I asked if they used protection, she admitted that sometimes they did. I retorted, You're fortunate that I got tested for STDs because I'm clean, so you don't need to worry about contracting anything unless your most recent partner didn't use protection. Before leaving, I shared my plans for the July 4th proposal, showing her the ring and explaining that I intended to propose at our friend's party, the very place where our relationship began. At this point, she began to cry uncontrollably, pleading for another chance. I expressed that while I would always care for her, our relationship was over. Since then, she has been messaging me all day, but I intend to block her soon. Now, I find myself sitting here, eating burgers and drinking beer while watching the fights, hoping Pa wins, though I'm doubtful. My life feels like an absolute disaster. Thank you all for listening. I'm unsure if I'll provide another update, as I don't see myself ever speaking to her again. More comments. See Falcon 663. I knew she would downplay it as a one-time thing. That's typical behavior for someone who cheats. Additionally, her statement, "Every time I went on those trips over the past 2 years, I thought you were going to cheat on me, so I sought out my own fun as well," is a classic example of blame shifting. It's a move cheaters often make to deflect responsibility. Remember, it's not your fault. Bushyboy 1973, I'm sorry to hear your landlord didn't release you from the lease, but at least you have your mother's support. It's not an ideal situation, but it's only temporary. This is entirely her loss. It's unfortunate she was on the verge of becoming someone's wife. You're a good man who valued her, and she threw it all away for fleeting fun. Focus on your healing and take it easy on the alcohol. You'll be okay. Flyguskop, it's commendable that you remain faithful, and it's unfortunate that Rachel was such a terrible person. She used your behavior as an excuse, believing you might cheat on her during those trips. It's also concerning that she didn't reveal who she was talking to, likely someone within your close circle, possibly one of your friend's wives. She probably didn't want to name them to avoid causing issues with mutual friends. Make sure to inform your friends about these possibilities. Regarding her behavior at the restaurant, she showed no remorse and tried to maintain her composure, which is telling. She only seemed to realize the gravity of her actions when you showed her the ring and mentioned the proposal. Now, it's time for you to quit drinking and begin your healing journey. If you discover who she was communicating with, please update us. Final update. Hey everyone. I want to express my heartfelt thanks to each of you for your supportive words. They've meant the world to me. A few developments have occurred over the past few days, and I'd like to share them with you. Nothing too exciting, but still worth mentioning. Rachel is no longer welcome at the 4th cookout, so I'm free from worrying about any confrontations with her. If you recall from my last post, while we were at the bar, one of the wives, the one who hosts the 4th cookout, tried to talk to me. Apparently Rachel had told her that she only cheated once, and that it was a significant mistake, hoping to get me to reconcile. When I spoke with her this past Tuesday, I revealed the entire truth. She immediately contacted Rachel, who was furious and began yelling at her. She advised Rachel not to attend the 4th of July event where I would be present, condemning her actions as vile and disgusting. She then asked me to forgive Rachel, claiming she had no idea what was happening. I explained that it wasn't her fault, and that there was nothing to forgive. We were both deceived by someone we trusted. Regarding the person Rachel was speaking to on the phone, I can only speculate that it was her sister. The two wives who are friends with her have firmly stated that they had no knowledge of Rachel's actions. It turns out that on Saturday evenings while we were away, they would have a girls' night at my house until around 11 p.m. discussing typical female chatter and enjoying some wine. One of the wives, who isn't even close friends with Rachel but participated in these gatherings, confirmed this. Additionally, I've tried reaching out to Rachel's sister 3 times without any response. No texts, no callbacks. Rachel's mother has also called, expressing her distress over the breakup and asking if there's anything they can do to change my mind, but I made it clear that wasn't going to happen. I returned to work on Monday after taking the week off, resuming my normal routine. I've decided to steer clear of alcohol for the foreseeable future. My liver will thank me. This community has been incredibly helpful, and I want to personally thank each and every one of you. I'm unsure if I'll update this account again, as it seems this chapter of my life is closing. By the way, Rachel has been blocked on all platforms, so she currently has no means to contact me. The cookout host mentioned that Rachel isn't doing well, as she told me before I clarified the situation. As for me, I'm not doing well either, but I'm moving forward and trying to leave all of this behind. Thank you once again, community. You all are amazing. Now, on to the next story. Story 2. I dedicated myself to my wife and our child, handling all the household chores while she returned home late each day. Out of curiosity, I followed her one evening and discovered that she was being unfaithful. My wife and I had been married for 4 years. Our first meeting was quite memorable. It happened at a football stadium. I had gone out with a few friends to support my favorite team, and she was there with her family. During the game, she attempted to take a picture, and since I was seated just a row away, she captured an image of me. Despite my proximity, I didn't mind at all and even smiled as she snapped the photos. We became friends shortly after that initial encounter because she was so charming and polite. After seeing how joyful I was in the pictures, she asked if she could send them to me. It was amusing because I initially thought she might be upset that I was photobombing her moments. Instead, our interaction sparked a friendship. We exchanged contact information and connected on Facebook. After the day we met, there was a period where we didn't communicate much. We started talking again when she reached out to me on Facebook, and from there, our conversations began. It began with random questions and gradually evolved into more personal discussions. I was drawn to her vibrant personality. She was energetic and always enjoyable to talk to, whether on the phone or through messages. After several weeks of getting to know each other, I asked her out on a date, and she agreed. Our first date went smoothly, leading to subsequent dates and eventually, a romantic relationship. I fell deeply in love with her, and she made me feel rejuvenated, almost like a child again. I had been heartbroken in my previous relationship, and had grown fearful of falling in love again, which led me to immerse myself in work and avoid forming close relationships with women. But with my wife, everything was different. She made me feel safe and secure, and I loved her immensely. My mind found peace with her, and we eventually got married. My wife had always wanted children, so within the first year of our marriage, we welcomed our daughter. She was already 2 months pregnant before we tied the knot. Although I wasn't initially eager to become a parent so quickly, I agreed because of how excited my wife was when our daughter arrived. I was overjoyed and cherished how she brought light into my life. Her presence motivated me to work harder and strive to be a better father and husband. As our daughter grew older, she spent more time with me because I worked from home, allowing me to take her to daycare and bring her back. My wife worked as a nurse, so her opportunities to spend time with our daughter were limited to her days off or when she was home. Since I was home most of the time, I took on the responsibility of managing the household, cleaning, doing the laundry, and occasionally cooking. I did this to alleviate her burden, knowing how exhausted she was when she returned from work. The idea of her cleaning the house, grocery shopping, and cooking with the little time she had to rest was daunting, so I took it upon myself to ensure our home remained tidy and comfortable for both of us. For the first 3 years of our marriage, everything was harmonious. We faced only the usual minor couple disagreements, which never lingered for more than a day. We were also devoted parents, doing everything possible to raise our daughter well. Our lives were blissful until the 4th year of our marriage when things began to unravel. The trouble started when my wife began to consistently not return home at the agreed-upon times. For instance, if she worked the afternoon shift and was supposed to be home in the evening to spend time with us, she would often not return until the following day, citing reasons like covering for a sick colleague or working overtime. Initially, I understood her reasons, but it gradually became a recurring pattern rather than occasional exceptions, and it began to strain our relationship. Our daughter started missing her mother, and I found myself making up various excuses for her prolonged absences. Additionally, our intimacy suffered greatly. She stopped allowing me to touch her, and whenever I tried, she would either complain about being too tired or say she wasn't in the mood. This lack of physical affection persisted for weeks and eventually extended into months. Concerned about the state of our marriage, I decided to enroll us in marriage counseling, but she never attended a single session. As time went on, our relationship continued to deteriorate, leading me to confide in a close friend. He suggested that my wife might be seeing someone else or that she was simply tired of our marriage. These ideas didn't make sense to me because I trusted my wife deeply and couldn't fathom that she would betray me. To illustrate my trust, I argued with my friend that my wife couldn't possibly cheat and that her hard work was solely to provide a better future for our daughter. I also considered the possibility that she might be unhappy in our marriage, but every time I tried to discuss it with her, her responses were either cold or indifferent, showing no interest in resolving our issues. After numerous attempts to mend our relationship, the thought of my wife having an affair began to take root in my mind. Over the past few months, I noticed several changes in her behavior. Previously, she would go grocery shopping in simple attire, but recently she became more conscious of her appearance, even layering 2 to 3 perfumes when going out. I didn't find this suspicious initially because I had always criticized how she dressed outside the house. Previously, her style was somewhat unkempt, which I frequently complained about, but lately, she had made noticeable improvements. It was something I often nagged her about, and I was pleased to see her finally taking my suggestions to heart. One day, while my wife was playing with our daughter in the living room, and I was in the kitchen preparing dinner, her phone rang. Instead of answering the call in the living room, as I would have expected, she hurriedly left the house. Immediately, I sensed something was wrong. In our 2 years of dating, and over 4 years of marriage, she had never left the house to take a call, regardless of the reason. Driven by curiosity, I put aside what I was doing and followed her. Although I didn't leave the house, I could hear most of her conversation because she left the door open. Before she returned, I quickly went back to the kitchen. Once she came back, she acted completely normal, playing with our daughter for a few minutes before turning to me to ask about groceries we needed to replace. I mentioned the items, and she made a shopping list. After that, she told me she would go to the grocery store herself since she wasn't doing anything else at the moment. I didn't need psychic abilities to sense that something was off. Her body language spoke volumes. I watched her go into our room to shower, change, and apply light makeup for her grocery shopping trip. Despite the lack of communication and the erosion of our marital bond, there she was, excited and fully dressed for grocery shopping. As soon as she left, I asked my closest neighbor if his oldest daughter could watch our daughter for a few minutes, and he kindly agreed. Relieved, I wasted no time and drove to the grocery store, knowing she was headed there as well. Upon arriving, I waited for a while, and just as I was about to exit my car to confirm if she was genuinely shopping, I saw my wife exiting the store with a man. She had her arm wrapped around his waist, and his hands were crossed over her shoulders. It was already evening, and the store was brightly lit. I watched them through the transparent glass and, before they could leave the premises, I stormed inside in a fit of rage. I was furious and, to this day, can't believe I acted that way. My wife was so taken aback by my sudden appearance that she was left speechless. I didn't confront or speak to her because, deep down, I knew our relationship was over. Instead, I directed my anger towards her affair partner, shouting at him and causing a scene. Bystanders gathered, capturing videos and photographs, but I didn't care. I was consumed by anger. Eventually, his manager learned about the affair and fired him. That night, my wife returned home to beg and cry, but no matter what she said, I was too disheartened to forgive her. She claimed she thought she could get away with it, and intended to return to me, which only hurt me more. That same night, I asked her to leave our home, and she moved in with a friend. It turned out she had been seeing him for over 6 months without my knowledge, while she fabricated stories about covering for a friend at work. She was spending nights with him, while I took care of our daughter alone. There's no need to ask if we divorced, because we did. I couldn't forgive or forget her betrayal while I was striving to be a good husband and father. Thankfully, I was granted custody of our daughter, mainly because she was rarely around to begin with, making it more practical for her to stay with me. It's been over a year since the divorce, and the pain and hurt I experienced have yet to fully heal. I was deeply disappointed, and that disappointment persists. My daughter remains my top priority, and I strive every day to be a loving father, teaching her the importance of faithfulness in her future relationships.